What we're looking at today is niching down to blow up your revenue, which sounds kind of back to front. Well, hang on, surely, I'd be better having 1% of a massive market. Have you ever seen Dragon's Den? Or in America, it's a Shark Tank. And the one sure way to lose the potential investors is when they ask you the question about your market and you say, oh, well, the market's $65 trillion a year, and all we need is if we just took 0.5% of that. And you can watch these business experts, these business leaders just switch off like a light bulb, because they know that the secret to success is not being a small fish in a massive pond. They know that the secret to business success is reaching the point where you are the fish in the pond, where you own the pond. Market dominance of your niche. Once you have market dominance of one niche, you can then, if you choose to, move into other niches. But the trick, the secret, is to be market dominant. No matter how small the niche may be, you're better to have 90% of a small market than 0.5% of an infinite market. As one of my good friends, Russell Brunson, says, the riches are in the niches, which sounds a lot less impressive in English because we say the riches are in the niches. It just doesn't scan and flow the same, but it means the same. The riches are always in the niches. And let me just talk you through why that is. This first got hammered into me, and I do mean hammered as in it gave me a headache and it hurt learning the lesson. But when I was 29, I got a job as head of marketing for the third biggest sportswear company in the world, Mizuno, Japanese company. And Mizuno were taking on Nike, and at the time the second company was Adidas. And the thing with Mizuno is that they were massively well known. In the Far East, they were completely ubiquitous. In Europe, which was my particular niche, and in the States, not so much really. And the challenge we had was that Mizuno did everything. They did ski wear. They did. They were in Japan. They were the company for baseball kits. They supplied the suits, gloves, and footwear for F1 for F1 drivers. They did swimwear. They did athletics equipment to the point of actually supplying javelins. They were in everything. Running. If you can think of a sport, think of an activity, they did it. At one point, they were even doing parachute silk. They were just everything. And when we came to launch them in Europe, they'd already established one niche, which was golf. And they were sponsoring Nick Faldo, and they were just brand leaders, effectively, in golf in Europe. They were so far ahead of their competitors. It was terrific to see. And when it came to opening up into the rest of sports, well, what do you do? Do you go for everything? Do you go for running and rugby and tennis and football and athletics and swimwear and ski wear? And what do? Well, as far as the heads of the divisions in Japan were concerned, oh yeah, we did all of those. They wanted us to do literally everything because, that was their thing. But what we very quickly realised was that we were much better to niche down. And really, really niche down. So we were fortunate in that we weren't very well known, but the company was very big. So what we were able to do was leverage that, and we took on effectively 4 areas aside from the golf division, and we took on football, rugby, tennis, and running. Those were the areas we went for, and the reason that we went for those was simply that we either had or could access great sponsorship with well-known opportunities. So in rugby, we sponsored the All Blacks for not very much money. In tennis, for a great deal of money, the company had sponsored Ivan Lendl, who was the world's #1 for an outrageous amount of time without ever winning majors. or not that often. Ivan Lendl just played in everything. His fitness was superb, so he played in every tournament and racked up the points that way. So it was great. The visibility was enormous. We went into running because we had Carl Lewis, the world's fastest 100-meter runner at the time, and we just had that recognition there. We could leverage it, again, for not very much money. And we went into football. Now, this was in 1991, when football, the Premier League, was just starting. The sponsorship with Sky TV was just starting. And there was a little bit of an opportunity there. So at one point we had, I think it was 9 or 10 of the Liverpool first team under contract for our boots. And I think the whole thing cost us about 90 grand. We had so many people under contract. These days it would cost tens of millions. I mean, an enormous amount of money. But back then, because we chose the niche that nobody else had gone to, there wasn't really a sponsorship scheme out there. The other companies weren't really doing sponsorships. They, if you were a professional football player and you wanted to wear Adidas, they would very kindly supply you with a free pair of boots. It was a new thing. So we were just able to leverage that opportunity in that market and effectively not own the marketplace, but become well known in those niches very, very quickly. Now, years have gone on, and frankly, the work that we did in that brief period kind of got frittered away and it's gone by the wayside. You'll find Mizuno around the place, but it's not where it was. It's certainly not where it could have been. And the major brands, the Nikes, the Adidas, the Reeboks, now Under Armour, and Gymshark, bless them, they've just progressed past them. Still a successful company. I wouldn't mind being one of the Mizuno family, but that's a whole different thing. But our success came from the niches. And it just sort of stuck with me, and it's stuck with me ever since, because we spent months saying no to people while we worked out what we wanted to say yes to. And that's, by the way, just as an aside, one of the most important lessons you'll learn as you progress through your business career is that what you say no to is almost always more important than what you say yes to. Just as an aside. And when I came to develop my own business, I found equally that the more I niched down, the easier it was to target my marketing and my messaging. The easier it was to gain a reputation, which made my marketing easier, which built my reputation, which made the marketing easy. You get the message. And that was really just because of niching down. So I started out my training business, and I started out doing personal development programs with a particular focus on salespeople. And that was because my background, I'd spent a lot of time doing research and training in behavioral psychology, researching sales skills, and mindset was and is a hugely important aspect of that. So I made the mistake initially of going, let's focus on mindset and performance and work on the personal development aspect of things with a bit of a niche in salespeople. And it sort of worked. The business was all right. And then we niched down and we just focused on personal development for salespeople, and the business took off a little bit. And then we niched down and we just did sales skills, and then we niched down and we just worked with 4 industries, and we niched down and we just worked with recruiters and insurance companies, and the business took off and it flew. We just sort of hold on to the tail as the business just took off of its own accord, because we gained the reputation, we gained niche sector expertise. When I was talking to camera or on stage, and I was talking to recruiters, and I'd spent the last, back then, if I'd spent 5 years, 10 years doing nothing but working with recruitment people, I knew what we were, they knew that I knew what they knew that we were all talking about. Rewind that, it makes sense. The more I niched down, the more the revenue blew up, because it was easier to focus my marketing, easier to build a reputation, and easier to make the whole thing much more profitable. Let me refer back to yesterday's video, the 3 growth factors, where you get more customers, spending more each time, and coming back more often. If you niche down, it's easier to gain more customers because your proposition, your pitch, your marketing are much more tightly focused. It's easier to get people to pay more because you've got the industry reputation, and frankly, the more you know about smaller areas, the easier it is to deliver results, as hopefully you're going to experience over the rest of this week. And coming back more frequently. Well, if you're delivering results, people will come back and they'll tell their friends and colleagues about you. And if they move to another firm, they'll tell them about you and bring you with them. So that niching down, every time I've niched down in my business, it's enabled me to be much more successful. Let me give you a recruitment specific example. I spent years, it's now 2.5 decades, that I've been specialising in training recruitment consultants, trained more than 50,000 of them, and I actually lost track of how many firms, hundreds, possibly thousands of different firms. And I was also, for some of that time, I was also training people in different industries. And it was inevitable that at some point somebody would say to me, probably happened about once a week, I get somebody say to me, oh, you know what we do, and you know a lot of recruitment companies, who should we be talking to? And I was very happy to make those introductions and referrals. Never asked for an introducer's fee because I was stupid and naive. It was just on the basis of, well, if I can help 2 customers, I'll benefit from it, bit of networking, all good, happy days. And generally speaking, that was good for all concerned. But every so often, I get asked, well, you know what we're doing, and you know recruitment companies, who would you tell us to work with? Who would you refer us to? I don't know anybody. And for a good period of time, I would just say, I genuinely don't know anybody in that sector. And I'd go out and try and find somebody for them, and sometimes I would, and sometimes I wouldn't. And once I got the question, and it was from a company in the financial sector. And they said, do you know anybody in recruitment? And I went, I genuinely don't. I don't know anybody. I'm not working with anybody that's in that particular niche. But you know what? I could probably do that for you. And that was the start of me building my niche executive search firm. And I started with blank sheet of paper, blank desk, and an opportunity. I got an insurance company that was asking me to do work for them, and we started out, and it was all right. We did some work for them, and it was nothing to write home about. They were happy. We made a bit of money. It was all right. But we were working with insurance, and if you don't know that sector, that's a big industry. You've got insurance companies, you've got underwriters, you've got reinsurers, you've got commercial brokers, personal brokers. It's almost endless. It's a massive, massive industry. So, well, that'd be great, wouldn't it? If we just took 0.5% of this multi-billion-pound business, that'd be terrific. But actually, it wouldn't, because I just mentioned a few sectors, and those aren't the niches. Those are just big sectors within the industry. And working to try and do all of that, just too much. You're defocused. You can't look after all of it. So we looked at it, and I'd love to tell you that it was a very strategic decision and massively well thought through. And, we did all the charts and we did all the numbers, and we, did a very careful SWOT analysis, and we did all that. Actually, no, we looked at the sector and went, okay, well, who do we know? And what have we got expertise in? And where is there not a lot of competition? Who do we know? What have we got expertise in? Where is there not much competition? And that's what we focused on. And the answer that we came up with was account executives, which is account managers and salespeople in non-insurance parlance, working with commercial insurers. So not working personal line, not working you and me as individuals, not working big corporate. They were doing commercial insurance. So they would be insuring recruitment companies, engineers, tech installers, medium-sized businesses, SMEs through to small corporates. And that niching, that focus, account executives, so salespeople, account managers, for commercial insurance brokers in the UK. That was our starting point. And once we really focused down on that, it took us 12 months to become pretty much market dominant. It took us 18 months to get to the point where companies were calling us, commercial insurance brokers were calling us saying, if we become your clients and put you on retainer, will you stop taking our staff from us? Basically, people were willing to pay us to be a client rather than a source. I hope at some point you have that experience of being able to say, I'd love to, but, and having a nice business conversation with people. That niching down, we became the £500 gorilla in a very small bit of jungle. We had market dominance in that niche. Now there's a whole other story about how we managed to fritter that opportunity away, and that's on one of my YouTube videos, but that's a whole other thing. We created that market dominance very quickly by being laser focused on the kind of roles we worked and for the kind of clients that we worked them for. And that niching down allowed us to blow up the opportunity and blow up our revenue. Now, somewhere in the middle of there, I almost threw away 3 factors. Okay? And those 3 factors are so important. They are how you do the opposite of what most people do and create massive growth and huge profit potential by doing the opposite of what most people do. I don't want to be splashing about in a great big gene pool. I would rather be down at one end, in my own little area, doing my own little thing and making my own little money. Actually, I'd rather be doing my own little thing in my own little area, making my huge pots of money. Yes, that's just me. Maybe that's not you. Just a thought. So those 3 questions. Please feel free to jot these down if you want to, though they are on the bottom of this page as well. Where do you have particular expertise? How big is that niche in my overall potential? And how competitive is it? Those are the 3 questions that allow you to identify your niche, as long as you do it the right way. Because what most people do is they say, well, I can do this and this and this and this and this and this. And well, I know this particular niche really well, but that's part of this industry, which is part of this, which is part of that. So I'm going to go after that and do all these things. And oh, well, there's about 550,000 competitors in there, but I'm me, so it'd be great. It'd be fine. I only need 0.5% of a really big market. No, just no. Stop. No. I was working with account executives for commercial insurance brokers. How much competition was there? Well, people who only or primarily work in that sector, none. There weren't any. There were people who did it as an adjunct to other stuff. But even if you include that, when I was involved in it, it was about 7 people, about 7 firms. There were some big names in there. And there were a couple of really small firms in there. But even the small firms were doing accounts execs for commercial insurance brokers and lots of other stuff. So we came in and we just did that one thing, and we focused like a laser on that one thing, and we applied all the frameworks that you're going to be learning over the rest of this week and yesterday and today. And we applied all the sales and influence techniques that we talk about in the Billings Breakthrough, and we just hammered away at that sector, and we became a very big fish in a very small pond. And as I mentioned before, my personal desk went to 800,000 in just over 11 months. The firm was obviously doing more than that. That's the power of specialization. It's the power of focus. What you focus on, as they say, is what you get. And we focused on hiring, finding and recruiting those people. Guess what? That's what we got. That's the power of niching down and the opportunity to blow up your revenue like crazy. So, actions from today, very simple. What's your real expertise in? If you're starting your desk anew and you don't have a real expertise yet, what would you like to have expertise in? What would you find really fascinating? What would really float your boat and groove your truffles, as my business partner says? Groove your truffles, how's that for a line? What would really groove your truffles? What would you like to wake up in the morning and go, oh great, I get the chance to play at this? What would you like to be good at? Secondly, what's the area, what's the niche? And reduce it down to the smallest possible viable size. Where would it be possible for you to take somewhere between 25 and 50% of that market, of that niche? I'm not asking you whether that's feasible. I'm not saying the timescale, but where is it not outrageous to say that you could take a big chunk of that niche, of the business in that niche? So rather than saying, for example, tech companies, you might take it down to software developers working in this area with these languages for these companies in this way, and you might end up with a total pool of 20 potential clients, for example. So niche it down. You're better to have too small a niche and then scale it up rather than starting out with too big a niche, because you'll never get the chance to scale it down. So start as small as you like. I mean, let's be realistic about this. Don't say, oh, I want to work with Mercedes. No, let's have a niche. But don't be afraid to pick a small, really targeted micro sector, because then you can always grow from that as your base. Once you're the £500 gorilla, once you're market dominant in that small space, then you can grow and scale. Let's start small. And lastly, what's the competition like in that niche? And obviously, the trifecta is an area that is something that you have massive expertise in and massive interest in, that's small enough for you to gain market dominance, 20 to 50% of that market as existing customers at any one time, where there's limited competition. And what you'll find is the smaller the niche, the less the competition is. Because most people who were my competitors, they were serving insurance, or they were serving brokers, and they were just doing underwriters, and they were doing customer claims handlers, and they were doing actuaries, and they were doing whatevers in the overall sector. And I had one job title for one type of company in one particular location, the UK. That was it. So it was quite easy for me to get significant market dominance, and you'll find the same is true of you. So the more you niche, the more you grow. Here's today's homework, depending on when you're watching the video. Sit yourself down and be honest. Be honest with yourself. What is your expertise, or what would you like to have expertise in? What's the smallest niche you can develop that's economically viable and has a very small or limited amount of competition in it? Spend some time on it. Possibly the most important exercise you'll do over this week, because once you've defined your niche, it becomes easier to apply the 3 growth factors. Because if you have a small niche, it's really quite easy to decide who you want to target for new business. And as you develop your expertise, it's easy to charge more. And as you develop your expertise and your reputation, it's really quite easy to get people to come back more frequently, because, well, you become Ghostbusters, as in, who are you going to call? All right, I'm showing my age. But you get the point. your niche down to blow up. And that will give you your ideal niche to start from. It may not be where you end up. It may just be your starter for the next year, 18 months. But if all it did was add 800,000 to your billings in the next 18 months, you'd probably live with it.